friend of the program and the creator of Pro Football Talk, and he's on PFT Live every day on Peacock and so much more. Here is Mike Florio. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing great, and I don't know whether it's a consolation or whether it's cause for concern, but when I saw Bofa, I thought the same thing.
Is that
right? We all swim the same water.
Talk about a need for a rebranding. Although maybe they're going for the demographic. I don't know.
Or maybe that's where Nick Saban does his banking. I don't know. Who knows? What did you make of this piece of news today, Mike? What's going on with the Commanders?
Well, the report from Forbes was worded in a way that created a little bit of a safe harbor, the idea that they're exploring selling a majority or minority portion of the team. Now, I don't know who in the hell would want to buy a minority share of the Commanders right now. He had 3 limited partners who couldn't wait to get out, and ultimately he bought them out in order to get them away from him because they were arguably, allegedly, whatever, creating problems for Dan Snyder, and some of these issues that have been floating around potentially trace back to the efforts of the 3 former limited partners to just get out from under Dan Snyder. I think this is an effort to posture this in order to get the best possible offer. Basically, if you make our number, we'll sell the team. And the number is going to be north of $5 billion. There's been plenty of speculation as to why. I think the best theory I've heard from someone in the know is that a new owner would basically be handed the old RFK Stadium site to develop a new state-of-the-art facility, and Dan Snyder, no way in hell, no how, is he going to be able to get a stadium because he's not going to be able to get the cooperation from the public officials he needs, and he's apparently come to that realization. So now it's time to cash out. He paid $750 million in 1999. He gets $5 billion 23 years later. Not a bad return on his investment.
Not a bad ROI at all. So that's what it is. It's born out of a stadium deal that nobody in town will make with him. But would that be also something that's pressuring him from within the walls? Because this is a guy who's constantly said no way, no how. There was even a statement in response to Jim Irsay's latest public foray and conversation about it in advance of their 2 franchises playing each other in Indianapolis that finished up with they'll never sell.
Right, but he was never going to change the name of the team either. I mean, Dan Snyder saying never is not the best resource for predicting what his future actions will be. If anything, it's the sign that at some point he will do the thing he's refusing to do. The stadium is the most logical business explanation for it. It's possible that someone he trusts finally got through to him and said, here's how this is going to go. Is it really in your best interest, your family's best interest, your team's best interest to go through this? Do you really want your kids to ultimately have this team after this protracted fight where you go scorched earth with any and all form of litigation you can pursue? I don't know that he would want that. I don't know if there's anybody who could talk him out of it. And it could be that the family got together. You know, it could be the kids, because he's been motivated all along to give the team to his kids. If I'm in my 20s and I think that's the age of his kids, at some point, I mean, I'm on social media. I'm hearing this stuff. I'm seeing this stuff. At some point I say, I'll just take the money, right? Let's just sell this team. How much money are we going to get if we sell the team? I'll take the money. I don't want my name and my face to be attached to this. The only thing better than being rich and famous is being rich. I'll stick with rich. Nobody knows who the kids are. I don't even know their names. And the kids may have decided, we'd just like to keep it that way.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Any potential buyers that we're already hearing about? You heard, obviously, the first name that everyone talks about is Jeff Bezos, who's now a partner of the NFL with Thursday Night Football. He also owns the Washington Post. He's also got enough money maybe in the ashtray of one of his cars or rocket ships to go ahead and buy this. I would imagine he'd get quick approval. What do you think?
Hey, I hadn't thought of this one. How about a straight-up trade? Elon Musk, Dan Snyder, Twitter for the Commanders. How about that?
Who brokers such a thing? Bofa?
I'd be happy to do it.
Both
I would
of
take
them?
a very small percentage. Josh Harris is a name to watch because we reported Josh Harris, co-owner of the 76ers, I believe, he was ready to pay $5 billion for the Broncos, and he would have paid $5 billion for the Broncos if he knew that $5 billion would have gotten the Broncos. But what he feared would have happened, and it would have happened, he goes to $5 billion. The Walmart clan goes to 5-1. He goes to 5-2. The Walmart clan goes to 5-3. He goes to 5-4. The Walmart clan goes to 5-5. So he said, if I can't get it for 5, I'm out. I think he would pay 5 for the Commanders. And the question becomes, who else is at the table? This is part of the goal. Let's get as many as we can. Let's do it on our terms. I think it's harder to get full value for the team if you're forced to sell it. If you're forced to sell it, you have no option to say, I'm not going to sell it in order to drive the price even higher. I think the thing to do is try to set up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different groups that are submitting significant offers, and you get $5 billion to $6 billion to who knows. You know, this is an investment for which the balance sheets, the cash flow, the normal valuation tools get thrown out the window. It's an auction. Who pays the most for the privilege of taking over this team? And the NFL issued a statement unprompted that, hey, by the way, if there's any sale, the finance committee has to approve it, and 24 or 32 owners have to approve it. Well, finance is the key. All that matters is how much money that you have. There isn't a test on how much you know about football, whether you'd be good for the team, for the league, for the game, for anyone. All that matters is, do you have the cash? And we're talking about people who clearly will have the cash.
Mike Florio here, host of PFT Live on Peacock, creator of Pro Football Talk, at Pro Football Talk, and the author of Playmakers, where all books are sold, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. Most surprising aspect of the trade deadline campaign season was?
The Rams not doing anything, because it sure felt like they were trying to either bring back Brandon Cooks for a reunion. Now the $18 million fully guaranteed salary he has for 2023 was an impediment that could not be overcome. The Cowboys were also in on that. And not getting Bradley Chubb. They were after him. The Dolphins ended up doing it. So the fact that they ultimately restrained themselves, and they reportedly tried, Albert Breer said, to send 2 first-round picks to the Panthers for Brian Burns. You know, at some point you have to admit you're not one player away, and they're not. And at some point you have to hold back some of your resources for the future. The team will continue to exist later this decade, and you can't completely mortgage your future in an effort, what I think is a foolish effort for now, to delude yourself into thinking you can go back and win the Super Bowl again. And look, nobody's giving up, and they have to say all the right things. But this is far different from last year, where they went all in for Von Miller and OBJ, and it worked. I think they have more needs than the trade deadline would have supplied. So I was surprised they didn't do anything, because I doubted that they were sufficiently self-aware of where they are right now. But, you know, just the sheer volume. We were hearing before the trade deadline, oh, there's already been a lot of trades. We may not see many, and we've been disappointed before, but to have 10 of them land on our laps yesterday, I was pleasantly surprised. And you know, my other crusade here that I'm really trying to get people on board with me is the idea that they need to move this deadline back, especially with an extra week to the regular season. At a minimum, it needs to go back to week 9. I'd send it even later. Why arbitrarily limit the arm's length negotiations and transactions that 2 teams can enter into? I'd run all the way through the end of the regular season. I mean, if a team wants to give up value, and another team wants to sell an asset and get more draft picks, so be it. If you want parity in the NFL, let those transactions happen, because it's conducive to having parity next year. It weakens a good team, and it helps a bad team.
Doesn't it also, I mean, as I've mentioned earlier this month or last month, that tanking in the NFL isn't just like sitting guys who are healthy on game day like it's the NBA. It's trading away your best players, so there are fewer good players to win games, and can't be overcome by very prideful men who are still around battling for jobs and want to win. Like, so wouldn't, if there was a trade deadline, say mid-December still, you'd have a ton of teams who know that they're done just selling off and trying to lose games that way over the last month of the season. Wouldn't you have fewer competitive games under that?
Well, you potentially would. The guys on the field are still going to compete. And, look, it would give teams easier cover for tanking at that point, the teams that really know they're done. The problem is right now it's too early to know that you're done. And maybe that's the way the NFL wants it. I don't know. Does the NFL want trades, or does it not want trades? By having the deadline now, the message is we really don't want these things, and maybe it is to combat tanking. But here's the thing about tanking. It exists. It happens. And as long as you don't admit it and also fail to later say, I was only joking, the NFL isn't going to do anything about it, because the NFL doesn't want to admit to the world that there is a very clear temptation to not put your best players on the field, to not try to win games late in the season in order to enhance your draft stock. Now, some folks like Sean Payton would say no team should ever do that because it's not conducive to future winning if you don't always have a winning culture and try to win every single game and do everything you can to win every single game. It sends a horrible message. It still happens, and the temptation is still there. And whether it's the Dolphins, who clearly were doing it in 2019, the Browns were doing it with these incentives that were payable to coaches and front office executives based on salary cap money being carried over, draft picks being stockpiled, that's not a factor that leads to winning now. They created financial incentives to get guys to do things that would minimize the value of the current team, maximize the future value of the team, and the NFL said that's not tanking. It's only tanking if someone says, hey, we're tanking, and we're not joking when we say we're tanking. Otherwise, the NFL is just going to look the other way, because that temptation is always going to be part of the sport. It's not going anywhere until they do a true draft lottery that basically puts all non-playoff teams into the hopper with the same number of balls, not weighted based on how bad you are. That temptation is going to be there.
Mike Florio here on the Rich Eisen Show. Last one for you here is I've lost track over the last 10 years, I guess, or even sooner than that, the number of storylines of why isn't Green Bay getting weapons for Aaron Rodgers? I mean, the number of times that we've had that conversation on drafts, and now this time around with the trade deadline, I've lost track. If I had told Packers fans going into the trade deadline period that you're going to come away with no new weapons for Aaron Rodgers, they'd be like, yeah, that's par for the course. But if I had then told them that the Bears, despite selling off two of their best defensive players, would acquire the very young receiver that the Packers would want and apparently went for, and the Bears would get for a second-round draft choice, now that would send off an alarm bell. What do you think is going on with Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers' thought process today, sir? What do you think?
Threshold question is, did the Packers really want Chase Claypool? Because if they did, they could have found a way to get Chase Claypool, just like last year with Odell Beckham Jr. Did they really want him? If they did, they could have found a way to get him. They know how to placate Aaron Rodgers by trying. Like, I think they're running a little bit of a grift on him where they're like, yeah, Aaron, we're really going to try to do this. Oh, sorry, it didn't work out. And he accepts it and moves on. That's part of the reality. I think it's this draft and develop mindset that goes back to Ron Wolf, who was the GM as of 92-ish, and it carried over to Ted Thompson, and now with Brian Gutekunst, we draft and develop, we draft and develop, we draft and develop. There's never a sense of urgency. There's never an effort to go all in. There's no F them picks mindset. And I think fundamentally, Rich, the main issue is there's no owner. There isn't that one person who can wake up yesterday morning and say, we're going to go do it. Or that person Brian Gutekunst can go to completely cover his own behind and say, hey, owner of the team, are you okay with this? And look him in the eye and get the idea, yes, the owner's okay with it, the owner's on board with it, the owner's excited about it. Without that owner, and I know it could go very badly. You could have a horrible owner that you couldn't wait, if you're a fan, for that guy to sell the team, a la Dan Snyder. But you also could have a very good owner who knows just when to light that fire, just when to embolden and empower the front office to go make those moves. Because look at the teams out there that feel like they're contenders and made moves. The Chiefs with Kadarius Toney, the Bills with Naheem Hines, the Ravens, what they've done to make a bad defense.
Niners.
The Vikings, for crying out loud.
Niners.
No urgency from the Packers.
Yeah, Niners. Jed York.
Exactly. Changed everything to get Christian McCaffrey.
Right. Apparently, Debo went up to Jed York, said thank you, according to the broadcast this past week, when hearing about McCaffrey. I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting way of phrasing it, Mike, a grift on Aaron Rodgers.
And I hate to say it. Well, I don't hate to say that. Why did I say? Why did I even say something I don't? I don't hate to say it. I think it's true. Because he was ready to retire, 2021. Remember the sports books all took down their futures bets for the Packers that weekend before training camp.
Yeah.
Everyone thought he was going to retire. He said he was 50-50 on the question of retiring. Then he had that 23-minute airing of grievances as his introductory press conference, and he made it clear that he's not happy he doesn't have a voice. Their attitude is, you just work here. So they bring back Randall Cobb, they placate him, and they listen to him, but do they really listen to him? He has a voice, but hey, we listen to all opinions. Well, we ignore all opinions too, and I feel like that's what the Packers are doing to him. They're listening to him, but they're still going to do whatever they're going to do, even if he would be better off if they either, if they did just put a real offer on the table last year for Devontae Adams, it never gets to the point where he wants to be traded to the Raiders. They waited too long to put a real offer on the table. That's just another example. I don't know that they really want to make these moves. They want to make Aaron Rodgers think they tried. Deep down, I wonder how hard they're trying.
Mike Florio, thank you for the time. As always, appreciate you taking my call and popping on here. Say hi to everyone on Peacock.
All right. Thanks, Rich.
You got it. That's Mike Florio. Check out PFT Live on Peacock, and you can check out his book, where all books are sold. And, of course, follow him at Pro Football Talk and see him on Sunday nights on NBC. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.